Morning, everyone, or I should say good afternoon. It's so beautiful outside, I want it to stay morning. I want to thank everybody for coming today, and I want to do a special thank you to the director here, Gene Parks, for helping us facilitate this and work through the power outage here today. Briefly, what I want to do is today outline to you a little bit about the IFO and also talk about the background of this issue a little bit. The Independent Fiscal Office was created in 2010. The General Assembly wanted an office that would provide independent analysis of fiscal issues and policy issues where they didn't take a side. They never took a side on one issue or another. They stuck basically to the facts, and they were to give that to policymakers so that they could go further. We use the IFO constantly, along with the budget secretary from each of the governors, but the IFO now gives us a report on their predictions of future indicators of growth in Pennsylvania's economy, as well as their ideas on what the cost of federal programs are, state programs, independent of what the governor may tell the General Assembly or any other nonprofit organizations. Many of you know that for years we have talked about as a delegation, and some have changed over the years in our delegation, about the cost of education. Talked about, in York County in particular, the funding formula, which we don't feel treats York County fairly. And we've been making an attempt to try and change that funding formula, which is very difficult because only about 80 state house members come from districts that are growing like York County is, with massive growth. And to think about it, we gain one legislative seat every 10 years. So you can imagine why property taxes in York County are going up. Our schools are expanding at a very rapid pace to keep up with the growth of student population. So also, we've been suggested by a number of people who have here in York County that we should be taking a look at how we can lower the cost of education here in York County in itself. And so we have decided that this is one of the ways that we can take a look at it, so that the information that comes out of this study will be utilized for the taxpayers to study and see whether they want to move forward with anything else. And we also may come up with additional studies after this study comes back. But we're looking at cost-saving measures for taxpayers, how we can be more efficient in our education system here in York County. And basically, the IFO will be looking at the merger of administrative functions in all of our school districts. And they will come back. We will have opportunities, and Representative Ron Miller and Seth Grove and others will talk about the report specifically. But we will have an opportunity as school board members, as legislators, as superintendents, as taxpayers, to look at this report and decide if we need additional information or whether we move forward in a different direction. So that's the basic analysis today of what we're going to try to achieve with this report. And for more details, I guess I'm going to turn this over to Representative Seth Grove.
Thank you. Each of you probably should have a packet. The original letter request from the delegation to the IFO should be in there, as well as a response from the IFO. Basically what we asked, and we've heard this time and time again from constituents across York County, why do we have 16 school districts? Why do we have 16 administrations? Maryland has one administration. They have county government. So I think a lot of it is a geographic setup in proximity to our sister state to the south. For a while, we went through and we went back and forth just discussing about, what would the impact be? What would the impact on state funding be? Would we actually see reductions in state funding because of a merged school district? What's the impact of the local tax base? Obviously, with a larger tax base pulling from, would in fact we'd see a reduction in taxes countywide because of this. So back and forth we were discussing it. Finally we came to the point where why don't we ask somebody with independent review to kind of look at what would happen if in fact, hypothetically, 15 school districts in York County would merge. What would be the effect of the local tax base? What would be the effect of any cost savings seen in administrative costs? And you kind of see what we're discussing. We do have one York County school district, West Shore School District, up in the northern end. They are a split school district. They're actually a consolidated school district. They are Cedar Cliff and West Shore Schools. Cedar Cliff and Redland school districts actually merged into one administrative factor. And being a cross-county school district, they have a little different issues to deal with when you're talking about merge. So we did focus in on the 15 school districts that are located within York County. Also, you can kind of see number of total administrators and total budget, $45 million. I will say most of the total percentage is about 4 to 6%, which isn't bad. And this isn't a blatant, you're recklessly spending. Some actual nonprofits have administrative costs at 8% or higher. This is looking for the taxpayers' behalf. If there's a better educational system, we can deliver services to York County in a more efficient and effective manner. So that's the scope of it, and $45 million is the total budget of some school districts here in York County. That's as much as they spend total on educating students. So we're looking at potential cost savings in merging administrative functions. We're looking at the impact on local taxpayers on merging tax bases of the 15 school districts. We're looking at the impact of state funding on the 15 merged districts, including the property tax relief allocations from slot machines. In fact, will we see less or more money from the state depending on aid ratio, student counts, and other marked numbers? The debt of each school district and how to deal with that. Is it better to consolidate that debt or leave that debt on each area school district? And look at the classification of school districts. Would the size of a York County school district be eligible for its own classification at the state level? We are talking about roughly 62,000 students in those 15 school districts. The largest is Philadelphia in the state at 102,000. So we would be looking at the second largest school district in all of Pennsylvania. And, as residents would put it, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Is it better to have that administration up a level, or is it better to have it at that localist level that we have now? These are all discussions we can enter into. It's all great for, obviously, moving education forward, and I look forward to the analysis the Independent Fiscal Office puts out, to have some independent analysis to see if moving forward, if it would in fact reduce costs at all. And obviously, this is all open for debate and further discussion. The report is due back by December 15th. The IFO said they should have it well before then. Not sure exactly when, but they'll get it done before at that point. With that, I'll turn it over to Ron, who has been a school board member, great advocate for changing the school funding formula, and has some other insight on some other studies that have taken place. I think would enter great into this dialogue as we move forward.
Thanks. I'm asked by people that know that we're looking to do this study, and they're saying their study's been done in the past. There was one done in the past 10 years on school consolidation within Pennsylvania. But that looked at the school consolidation as the state. It didn't look at York County in particular. As was noted, for decades, we've been asked, why can't we go to a countywide school system like Maryland? And that shouldn't be a surprise, because much of the growth in this area is from people that have moved into southern York County, into southern Pennsylvania from Maryland. Well, my response has always been, if things are so great with the Maryland school system, why is everybody moving here? And I look at that. I looked at a Standards & Poor report maybe 7, 8 years ago, and it showed that Maryland was spending more money per student on school administration than we do in Pennsylvania. Now, I just pulled the census figures, and by the way, if you average this out, what the school districts spend, it's about $830 per ADM in York County. In 2011, according to the Census Bureau, Pennsylvania spent about $941 per ADM. So that tells you York County what we know. We're pretty frugal people, and we don't throw money around unless we have to spend it. If you look at the same report that says Pennsylvania's average was $940 per ADM, Maryland's in that report is $1,110 per ADM in 2011. So that, I'm sort of making the case saying we shouldn't even do this study, but I have to tell you, York County is unique. I served on the Dallastown School Board. I also served on the York County School of Technology. At that time, we called it the VOTEC School, operating committee. And not every county in Pennsylvania runs the vocational technical training the same way we do. They don't have a standalone school. Many of them, it's part-time. So you really need to look at York County. We need to look at York County the way it is, the way our structure is, and see if there's things that we can do better. If this study comes back and says there's nothing we can do that's going to cut school administration costs, I will accept that. But maybe some other recommendations come out of it. Maybe we learn something new. As was noted, we've been trying to change the funding formula for public education for a long time. Since 1991, during the Casey administration, when they quit funding for new students, we've been trying to win this battle. We're the growth area in the state. Us, the Poconos, Lehigh Valley. Everybody else has been winners, and that's why we can't get the votes to change the funding formula, because if we do get those votes, it means somewhere else people are going to pay more. And that's very hard when, as Stan noted, maybe 80 state reps out of 203 represent growing areas of the state. So if we can't win that battle, we have to look at ourselves and say, what can we do to control costs for our residents, the constituents in York County, for the people that send their kids to this school, and for everybody else that helps pay for that bill. So I'm glad we're going to take a look at this, focused on York County. Years ago, York Counts recommended that we collect the business taxes in York County, the property taxes for businesses, on a countywide basis and redistribute it on a per-student basis to all the students in York County. Their belief was that that would actually give more money to the poorer districts and cost money to Dallastown, suburban, central, the ones that are considered to be wealthier. I question that at times, but that's the way it appears. And in reality, when the Pennsylvania School Boards Association looked at that, it did the reverse and actually gave the wealthier districts in the county more money and took money away from the poorer districts. So we have to be very careful that we use real data and really analyze this situation in the proper way. And that's why I think this is great that we're going to look at York County and see what the possible is. Thank you.
Howdy, Will Tallman, and I represent Hanover and Penn Township in York County. And Hanover, by the way, is next to the lowest funded school district by the state in our county. And I'm always a former school board member. I'm always interested in school funding. I know Representative Miller and I have worked several times. I actually come up with a school funding formula that would have benefited us greatly. And but as you've heard, I've had Republican representatives, particularly from the northwestern part of the state, tell me they would never vote to change this school funding formula because it would be a detrimental impact on them. And I'm going to say one more thing. Ron referenced the Standard & Poor's study. We also have another study comparing IU-12, which we're part of, with Carroll County, which is directly south of us. And again, our costs per student were lower. So, but we need to look at ways to sustain education funding. And so I'm supporting the study just because we need to take looks at all kinds of avenues to make this happen. Thank you.
To wrap up before we take questions, is that, again, to kind of reiterate, this delegation could continue sitting here and fighting for funding formula changes for the next 20 years. We've been fighting for property tax elimination for 40 years in this state and hasn't moved. And we've decided it's time for us to continue to fight for funding formula changes. We want to continue fighting for property tax elimination, all of those things. But to sit idle by and not keep looking at new ideas to improve possibly the way we handle this for efficiencies in our schools or for taxpayers, we want to give everybody as much information as possible. This isn't about doing away with Red Lions football team or Dallastown's basketball team or somebody's soccer program. It's still going to be the Red Line Lions, it's still going to be the Wildcats or Central York Panthers or whatever it is. Remember that. This is not about making it one school. It's about how can we handle efficiencies in schools better. You know, Mr. Thu is here. I don't want you to point him out, but he heads the IU. And we learned a long time ago by using our IUs, they have benefited each of our 14 school districts in York County. Sorry, Mr. Thu, that I pointed you out, but I wanted to make an example. If we can't just be stagnant in what we do in education. We got to continue to look and improve. Pennsylvania is considered one of the 8th best states in the nation in education. That's great. but there's a lot more things we can do. And particularly as Ron Miller pointed out, Representative Miller pointed out, we have a pretty good school system. But we at the same time need to continue to expand to look at ways that we can continue to improve because of taxpayers and because of the children. We owe that to them. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Representative Grove.
We'll just open up for any questions. Yep.
Have you gotten any pushback on this notion, and do you expect to get any pushback from any particular groups?
I think it's just a general study to review. It's non-binding. It's just looking at data. For the most part, as they said, we have a pretty efficient school system here in York County. We're looking to see if we can create more efficiencies, look at the general tax base. General public comments, just being out in the district, generally they feel it's about time, you know, and going back again to that Maryland mentality of they do it in Maryland. You know, the general question is, why do we have 16 superintendents? Why can't we just have one? So we're reviewing the data to come up and either say, you know, yes, it's efficient to do that, or no, we have the most efficient system possible. And again, there's going to be further questions. I mean, do you want a larger administrative system? Do you want larger government? Do you want bigger government rather than your local school district? So general public seems pretty supportive of it, but again, that final data isn't in there to show which way is a better system of government. Yeah.
This also, there's talk about a little bit of potential cost savings at the administrative level. What about teachers and the other employees? I mean, we're looking at their salaries?
No, we're solely looking at the administrative salaries. We're not looking at changing geographic boundaries of school districts. So mascots will maintain the same. That function will maintain the same. What we're looking at is administrative costs. We are looking at tax base, the merging of tax base, and distribution of that tax base around those 15 school districts. And we're looking at school funding flowing into the school districts, each individual school districts, and how would that play out with one administrative function flowing into one York County school district.
Yeah, I would just mention on the idea of consolidating the teaching staffs, you have to take a hard look at union contracts, and if you've ever been in on negotiations, I look at the school board members, you have to believe that you will not negotiate a contract at the lowest level of any school district in the county. If you did the average, maybe it's a wash for the taxpayers, but the chances are almost every time in the private sector that you have merged unions, you come in at the higher contract rate. So it's a real concern that if we really took a hard look at that, you're driving costs higher overall. Maybe someday that's something that gets looked at, but I'd have real concerns about throwing that into this mix at this time.
Well, this isn't a plan for consolidation. This is just a study looking at the overall cost of just the administration aspect of it. So it's not touching that at all. Yeah.
My name's Mike Wagner with Central New York School District. Congratulations, thank you. My question is that consolidation seems to be a question on the table. How does that happen? There's, what, 14 or 15 elected school boards in York County. How does that happen?
This doesn't look at the how to get to consolidation. This looks at, is there cost savings in consolidation? Looking at the administrative costs, looking at the merged tax base. This does not get into, we're going full force and we're going to merge these school districts. This is a look. This is a snapshot to see if in fact it is. This addresses that question that constituents probably come up to you and ask you as a school board member, why do we have 16 administrative entities in York County? And, you know, conceptually we are much larger. You know, Lancaster does have less, you know, school districts. They have less senior centers too and so forth. What we're looking at is having an independent review to come back and say, yes, there are cost savings and you will see reductions to taxpayers, or no, you will not. That's the question we're asking them to answer.
And remember, right now, the school districts have at their option anytime they can merge. School districts have the ability today to merge anytime they want to. If you would remember a few years ago, Hanover and Southwestern had discussions on merging. They put it on the ballot and it failed, the merger of those two school districts. So the same thing would come here. If this report comes back and there's overwhelming support of merging the administrative functions, then we would have to look at where we go from there, but it eventually would be left up to the voters. It's not left up to us as legislators. About, I think now, in the, I believe, 60s or late 50s, we went from about 2,500 school districts in Pennsylvania down to 500. And I will tell you, the voters did not like it. Just about every legislator in the state was defeated in re-election. And so it's really one of those things now. Basically, the General Assembly says, well, it's your county. It's your school district. It's local control. You're going to keep local control. It's up to you as voters how many school districts you want, if you want to merge, and what functions you want to merge. So it's really open from the state's point of view, the legislature's point of view, is the county can do anything. We don't even have to do this study. They can merge it tomorrow. The voters of York County could put it on the ballot and merge it tomorrow. All we're doing as legislators is giving the facts and evidence out there one way or the other that people can make judgments on where they proceed from here.
It does. Okay.
That's why
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, you have to be very careful when you do the comparison, because if you look at the Census Bureau figures that I've referenced for 2011, Maryland, according to this, for school board and superintendent, spends far less than half of what Pennsylvania does, but they spend almost twice on the principal's office line item, and they're added together to get the total cost of the school administration. What I don't know is, for York County, how that would split out on these figures. But yeah, the school administration includes the school boards, the superintendent, and it also includes the principal's offices in the school district. Yes?
The release that I received yesterday said that the principals in each district would stay the same. Is that true, or could you say that this?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're just looking at overall administrative costs at the top end. We're not looking at individual school district costs within the scope of the study.
Okay, but the principal costs would still be included.
The administrative costs here are pulled from the reports that the school districts supply to PDE. So whatever the school districts are reporting to PDE in their administrative costs is right there.
But these aren't necessarily the numbers that you're using for the study.
No, yeah.
I'll ask a follow-up question. I know the answer. Have you involved local school boards in the process to get to today?
No, we asked the IFO as an independent study to look at it. Obviously, had we gone to the school boards and said, hey, would there be cost savings in getting rid of your school board and your school district? It provides a very independent analysis of it. You know, I have no expectations of what's going to come out of it. It's going to be raw data that we can move forward with and analyze. Maybe we'll find some cost savings. Maybe it'll be overwhelmingly huge cost savings. I'm not sure. I don't know where it's going to go at, but to ensure we have an independent analysis, we have asked probably one of the most independent fiscal offices that track their data, provide excellent footnotes, and do a great job of analyzing this sort of thing.
I will tell you, school boards are kind of upset. We learned about this yesterday. The letter was August 23rd.
Yeah. Well, last time I checked, I don't have school districts sending me detailed information of what they're doing on a day-to-day basis either. So it goes both ways. Yeah, go ahead.
Chart that you're showing there with number of administrative staff, did I understand you say that that includes school board members?
No. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. No. No.
No, I was referencing,
No.
yeah. Yeah, well, I was referencing, well, but that's not true in Maryland, because school board members are paid in Maryland. There's not that many in a county, but they are, so that's included in their costs, you know, a few.
Anything else? Well, thank you very much. Once we have a final determination from the IFO, we'll make sure we make that as public as possible. So thank you very much.